Welcome to this month's update with what's happening around in the area, both with Abode New Homes and Abode Property Management, and also Darwin and the Territory. So it's been, as far as market inquiries going, we've still got a strong market out there. There's a lot of inquiries still coming through the display home, looking at residential housing, and what we're finding is a lot of those buyers are second and third home buyers, where 2 to 3 years ago we're looking at the bulk of the market was first home buyers. There's definitely been a shift in the market now into the second and third home buyers and the higher quality, higher end homes as well. So, which is a good outcome for the Territory to keep that momentum moving and still having that inquiry coming through. Even though the grants have finished, there's minimal grants available now, but the stimulus from the federal government really and local government really fired up the market some time ago, which had a lot of pressure on it. So moving along, we do have material costs rising. There's no doubt about there's inflation coming through, and with supply and demand, there's definitely been material costs rising there. And some of those items are timber. Timber's definitely rising quite considerably, and also there's quite a large shortage of timber. So I was talking to a counterpart in Brisbane just recently, rung up an existing estimator that used to work for us. The first thing he said was, have you got any timber? And I said, no, have you? And they're looking at, apparently their 4-month wait for wall frames from the time they put slab down to when they get frames down there on the east coast. So that's Queensland. Same is happening in WA. They're ordering 5 house lots and they might get 2 house lots. So that's the timber side of it. We've had quite an increase in steel costs. There was 19% from December through till March in steel. We've just been notified of another increase of another 15% coming up shortly as well. So that then applies through reinforcing steel, through structural steel, etc. like that. So we do use quite a lot of steel in our homes, and that's an increase there as well. Also shortages of materials. So obviously, as I mentioned, timber's becoming a shortage, and things like tapware, tiles, all those types of items also are spasmodically having shortages, and a lot of that comes back to them not being able to get the product out of China and get it back into Australia due to the container shortages and the freight side of things. So that's where we're looking at there with shortages. Importing costs, as I said, importing costs have increased. So talking to suppliers, they're saying that the materials, a lot of the time the materials sitting there waiting to be imported into Australia, but the costs of it and the container shortage are really increasing that. So right across the board we're seeing an increase. I'd say probably at this stage we're in about at least a 10% mark for materials at least. Without a doubt, and that's across all different sectors of materials. Even local materials that are produced in the Territory, for instance, block, the best blocks there have had an increase as well, and then you add in the costs of the increases of labour as well. So we're getting across the board through supply and demand, we're getting increases of costs of labour, and that could be purely, or not could be, what it is purely is we're building 360 homes a year. In the Territory now we're looking at around about the 900, so you're almost triple of where we were before with the same amount of trades. Now normally when we have an increase in Territory like that, it's not such a bad thing because we can advertise down south and get trades from down south, but when you've got what we've got, the situation we've got in Australia now, where that is right across the board, all states, all territories are super busy in the housing industry, the attraction to get someone from down south to come up when it's busy here is not there. So there's definitely been, that's slowed down the construction timelines for the builders, and talk, we're feeling it. Our counterparts throughout the Territory, other builders and that we talk to as well, all got the same challenges. So it's really slowed it down there, which is unfortunate. But I guess in one way, there's a lot of stimulation going on. It's all coming through the market, and also that stimulation helps with the local economy as well. So it's a bit of a catch-22. So I believe we'll see the demand keeping on reasonably strong, although, as I said, it has backed off a little bit since the grants have finished. But with the low interest rates, I'm expecting to see another interest rate fall in the next sort of 6 months. When money's costing you basically nothing to borrow, or very minimal to borrow, that's definitely keeping a strong demand on the housing, and I see that being the same for the next 2 years, based on people want security with what's happening interstate and other areas. They do want security. They do want to put their money into secure things like assets and housing, and also when you're looking at zero not zero, but close to zero interest rates. It makes it very attractive to put in there. And it's also, when you look at housing, what's happened in the last 12 months, the housing is growing in value, and we're seeing that in the Territory. We're seeing at this stage, over a 20% rise. I think it might be around about 22% rise in the housing market in the Northern Territory, especially in the Darwin, Palmerston areas, compared to where we were 12 months ago. Now that's a big increase, and we're seeing it right across Australia in different areas, and obviously it fluctuates up and down a little bit. However, there's definitely momentum there, and that's an attraction for people to look at buying and putting their money into secure assets. So that's why I see a continuation of the market keeping reasonably strong. So Darwin, there's been a surge, obviously been a surge in land demand. So with that, we had a lot of land available that was titled. That's now been bought up, and we're in a situation now where we're actually, end of July, we've got land that's already been pre-sold that won't be titled till December, January, February, March, April. So with the market, the building and housing market now is at a point where we're building on the title land that's available, and we're waiting for the new land to be constructed and titled to keep them moving on those contracts. Now, that's got pros and cons. Obviously, there's work in the pipeline for everybody, which will keep filtering through the industry. But the challenge that I do see with that at the moment is with the rising costs of material, and this will keep rising. People who have signed a contract now that won't be started till February, March, April next year, there's be price increases that will come through. So it's good. It's got to be very careful that you're taking that into account. If you're looking at building, just take into account that the contract price today, the cost that is going to rise, and it should be it should allow for that. So don't stretch yourself too far. Don't put yourself in that position of being stretched. Okay, so rents have increased. So talking about the market, rents have increased as well. So the rental market is going very strong, and 12 months ago we had roughly about 900 homes in the Territory on the market. We're now down to just over 300. That was down at 200 not long ago, around the 200 mark. It's now just crept up to around about 300, which is not a lot of homes when you consider the size of the Territory on the market. So there is definitely rental crisis out there. They're still putting pressure on the rental market. Rents are still rising and growing there, and applications, we see it through the property management, where a property will come on the market and there's a minimum 10 applications for that property. So that on its own just shows how strong the market is. So rents are rising, values are rising as well. So we're looking at sales over, once again, I mentioned before, over 20% in the real estate market has risen. Now it's quite a large increase. One of the offshoots of that means people have got equity back in their pocket again that they can use to invest or buy more property or whatever, which also then keeps stimulation of money going through. So the property market all round through the Territory is looking very promising. It's a bit over the Darwin Territory, so there is the Territory sort of come to light, and I've been saying for some time now that the ducks are lining up, and the reason I say it, we were sitting on the bottom of the market, it was very quiet. Economically, we were struggling. Now that's turned around. We've now got major projects that are out there starting, that are turning over, that are now getting cash flow through the Territory, and that's been proof in regards when you look at. You go out there, people are spending money now, people are buying houses, people are out at restaurants. 12 months ago it was very quiet, you wouldn't see a lot of that. Now there's a lot more stimulation, and the velocity of money through the Territory is really, really moving, and it's very positive. So we've got the Defence are now spending that, and they're about 3 years behind where they were, so all that's starting to fire up now. We've got other major projects that are being announced and coming through. A lot of mining projects. You've got the onshore gas as well. You've got the gas plants out here, which are looking at expansion and growing. Now all that stimulates and turns over money. And when you look at our population of 145,000 around the Darwin vicinity, it doesn't take a lot to turn that switch on, and that switch has been turned on now, and it's really moving. So that's pretty much an update for what I'm seeing in the market and what's happening out there in the housing and Darwin and Palmerston, and I hope you enjoy it, and we'll catch up with you soon.